Vlad Razumovich and Brian Ryder. Welcome to the Biohacking Secrets Show.
How's it going?
It's going great over here. We have a very exciting and fun episode for our listeners today. And I'm pumped to be sitting down with you guys because I've been, for the past year or two, diving pretty deep into the world of peptides and peptide bioregulators and the role that they can play in sort of almost an adaptogenic property in balancing different systems within the body, and how, in the context that all of us have these different genetic and lifestyle predispositions where you're only really going to live as long as your worst organ or worst organ system. These peptides and peptide bioregulators offer a lot of promise in being able to improve perhaps a suboptimal functioning organ or organ system in the body. And you guys have one of the biggest sites on the internet that has kind of brought this to the mainstream with cheesesupplements.com. So I'm pumped to pick both of your brains and share some of the cool things that you guys are seeing in the trenches with our audience.
Yeah, glad to be here. These products have been pretty cool.
Yeah. So, I mean, before we kind of get into the nitty gritty of peptides and bioregulators and all of that, maybe you guys could give a little bit of each of your origin stories or your backstories and kind of how you got here.
Sure, I guess I'll start since I've been in this a little bit longer than Brian.
Yeah, take it away, Vlad.
Yeah. I started this company in 2015, about actually when my son was born. That was kind of a big push into starting something that, could change some, me financially and, start, a little bit of a business. And, we kind of started looking at all the different things. And one of the things came up that we went into supplements. So that was kind of a good idea because, we saw, oh, supplements are great. Lots of people are using them. And we got to a point where we kind of stumbled upon the same thing. So there is either sports nutrition, right, which is supplement. There is vitamins. And then there's a whole new movement of people going into anti-aging. Mm-hmm. So, my mom, who is part of the business as well, she's very good at taking care of herself, and she's always been into anti-aging. So she was kind of the main culprit behind actually getting into the anti-aging world. And then we started just reaching out to vendors and companies and different manufacturers on, what's anti-aging, what do they have, what are they doing, and stuff like that. And then, we got to one of our big vendors, and, we started talking to them, and, we bought a bunch of products that were already kind of on the market, the canned CI drops and, melatonin caps that, were selling pretty well. And we essentially just, reselling those products. Mm-hmm. But in a conversation with them, and we spent a lot of hours with them out in Europe, they mentioned, hey, we got this new product. It's not to market anywhere. This is brand new, at least in the Western world, and mm-hmm. It's these peptides. So, and they seem to have a lot of promise, and a lot of our scientists that are behind our company are really starting to believe in this stuff. And, there's a lot of data. So kind of, we started really focusing our company on data-driven supplementation. So a lot of the products, all the products that we sell have substantial amount of data behind it. There's, research articles and all kinds of other information that we pulled out. And essentially one of our, big products was essentially the peptides. It started out pretty slow. We were the first to market in the US in 2016. Started selling them on Amazon. It really took off, and we were kind of like doubling our business. Every year we would just double in size. That's kind of how we got here. And now we're pretty much, I'd like to think we're the biggest, peptide seller here in the country.
Well, okay. I'm going to save the questions. Brian, please, your backstory, and then I'll.
I got into this. I have, I travel a lot all over the world, owned a number of businesses, and my wife said, "Hey, I have this friend who needs to build out an online website. They're selling on Amazon. Can you help them?" So I met Vlad about 3 years ago, and then and I was like, "Okay, yeah, we'll build this out." That's kind of specialty. With stores online, and then I don't even know much about the product, so we start getting really good traction. but I still don't know that much about the products, but we're selling a bunch. And so I'm like, okay, we need to start writing more content. So I start going out and researching the products, and I'm like, wow, these things are really interesting. Like the research here is incredible. I mean, it's 40, 50 years of research on the effectiveness of peptide bioregulators. And like, this sounds really good. And then I'm like, is this too good to be true? I mean, is this just somebody that's really, really good at marketing? So start like reading testimonials, and we get 20, 30 people a month at least, like going out and sharing their story. And you start seeing this theme of, hey, I've tried everything in the medical community. It's not really worked. It's not really helped. I've used peptides, and then you're like, wait a minute. And, I'm kind of shocked. And as we keep growing, it's, there's just that trend of and theme of like, wow, I feel 20 years younger. We have, a lot of customers in that they're late 40s, early 50s, and they're like, I feel 20 years younger again. I'm recovering much better. I don't have these setbacks. And I'm like, oh, well, wait a minute. And then, that really got me interested in it, my family interested in it, because I'm like, what is it about this? And then just the more and more I explored and research, I'm like, wow, it's a game changer that's not really known. And just from watching what happens in the world, you can see, because they're not like, you kind of look at like how expensive they are versus some of the other ways you could go down to try to deal with something. And you're like, oh, this is so incredibly cheap for the problems it solves. It's I can see why there was people just kind of put that research and said, oh, this is nothing to see here.
Right. I mean, there's a lot of things that are unique about it, and I'm gonna want to pick your brains and see if someone's like, well, what's the difference between peptides and supplements? Or, I mean, even now there's all sorts of people are using BPC 157 for injuries and a variety of different peptides for boosting HGH and IGF-1 and all these different things. But we're talking about something different here. A lot of the peptides that you guys are utilizing are coming in capsule form, or I have the Vlad, you corrected me on the pronunciation, but was like the Pinaleon sublinguals.
Yeah. Pineal, Pinealon, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the best distinction to kind of frame out the difference is, so there's when we're talking peptides, you're going to hear about peptides about, sometimes you'll hear about injectables, or you'll hear about different type of peptides. And then there's peptide bioregulators. And what's the difference? And some people will take, and the best way to describe it is a lot of peptides or injectables are just trying to like heal your body. And it's kind of trying to bypass systems and just go right into your blood and heal your body, where peptide bioregulators are different, because it's actually not doing that. Its focus is on going out and regenerating new tissue through protein synthesis to actually get your body to repair itself, instead of like trying to I think a big belief is peptide bioregulators believe, kind of fundamentally, it's like your body can heal itself when it has, the proper nutrients and the what it needs. And that's really the distinction between peptide bioregulators. And then, some of the times you'll hear about injectable peptides or different type of peptides on the market.
One of the big differentiators that I have noticed is that people generally have a sense, even without a physician involved, and that's, I'm not suggesting you go around or don't work with a doctor. You should, and the acronyms make sure we say that. But people have an idea if there's a part of their body that's not functioning optimally, right? If their vision is blurred, they're like, okay, there's something going on with my retinas or my brain or my nervous system. If their joints hurt or they're frequently experiencing tendonitis, they can say, all right, there's something going on with perhaps my cartilage or my joints, ligaments, and connective tissue. And what is going on with these peptides is they're composed of different parts of healthy animals, and that tissue can be utilized by our bodies to regenerate those specific parts. Is that an accurate statement, or does that not apply to all of the peptides?
I think mostly correct. The big thing with the peptide bioregulators, so it's a short chain amino acid extract. They take them out of bovine and porcine, so cows and pigs. Some people prefer pigs because they're more closer to us biologically, and how a lot of their organs work. But
very smart animals, the pig.
Oh yeah, exactly. So essentially what that works is, it works as a biohacking, gene hacking is what it does. So it's a 2 to 3 chain amino acid that attaches to your cells, into your DNA. And when your DNA is read, right, it triggers a response from your stem cells to go and repair a certain part of your body. So essentially what it's doing is it's activating inactive stem cells. And in one of the books that we sell, Peptide Revolution, Peptide Bio,
I've got it right here.
that kind of is really well explained in that book.
A great book.
Essentially, and in that book, one of the things it states is there's a percentage, I think it's somewhere in the 50 or 60% range, of how many of our stem cells are active or have never been activated when we die. I don't remember the exact number. I know it's substantially high. So, and a lot of people, they do stem cell therapy, which, does exactly that. They take inactive stem cells and they pump it into your blood to activate them to try to get your body to repair. This is essentially very similar to that, where the protein chain essentially tricks your body into activating your stem cells to repair specific areas of your body and regrow tissue. And essentially and also the really important thing to know that peptides only regrow tissue. They don't really do a lot of other things besides that,
which gives people peace of mind in the cancer space, because there are a lot of things like human growth hormone, where if you're taking human growth hormone, it can be beneficial and it can help your body regenerate. But if you have latent cancer and don't know it, it's like throwing gasoline on a fire. That's not the case with these peptides.
Exactly, yeah, because it's your own stem cells. And the way I like to explain it to people is, your stem cells are your Bible, right, of your body's Bible, of how it was built, right? It has all the code, it has everything of what your body needs, what your gland or organ needs to be functioning as, in order to have 100% function of that. So you're using that building code, your body's, Bible to repair to, if it's your adrenals, right? It goes through and it looks at what's not functioning, what's not built correctly in this adrenal, and it builds the tissue and repairs the damages that it's had over the years.
Yeah. And so this is kind of pulling directly from that book, the Peptide Bioregulation Revolution by Marios Kairizi, MD, which is on your website, spelled QIsupplements.com, pronounced cheesesupplements.com. The book's fantastic. It's very short, but it's dense. And we didn't technically cover this, so I want to mention it, but peptides are combinations of amino acids. And if these reach a certain length, they're called proteins, right? So that's kind of what you're taking, but it's specifically targeting different systems and organs in the body, where you've got, I think one of the best sellers is endogluten. That's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
I find that I feel like I'm much more clear-headed. It affects the pineal gland. My cognition and everything just feels clearer from that. And maybe that's in my head. But there's also Ventfort, which is a blood vessel peptide. And that has a lot of relevance now post 2020 with COVID and everything that's been going on in the world, and people that are experiencing that. You've got Vladonix, which is a thymus or immune peptide bioregulator, sirlutin, which affects the nervous system and has a lot of applications for Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, which my dad has, and dementia and that sort of thing. So there's all of these different systems. And I think part of what people are really responding to is that they're quite powerful, and under certain circumstances produce feelings that people can perceive. Yeah. That's not true for a lot of supplements. 100%. And number two, it's empowering people, because they can say, I know my immune system is screwed up or not doing well because I've been under the weather for a long period of time. I'm dealing with long COVID, etc. I'm going to take Vladonix. It's pretty linear in that's thymus and immune related, right? So it gives people back some semblance of power in this. And I absolutely love that. I feel like that's the future of health mastery. And I don't know. I mean, I guess, what are your guys' thoughts on the application and where these things fit in to having control over your health? And if you don't have an answer to that question, or if that question is shit, I'm also interested in like how these things came to be and sort of the role of this guy, Vladimir Kavinson.
You know what? I think what if we look at like why I think they're really appealing is, they're not built. And one of the other things, and it's a fundamental belief we have in our company and in health is anything you take every day is probably not a good idea.
Right.
And you look at like peptides, and I think why people really resonate with them is so you have an issue, you take a course, and then just to maintain, you can take them, once, twice a year is probably
Yeah.
good. And we have a lot of people where we've seen some incredibly sick people that, and now they're just on a maintenance program taking one or two of these different peptides a year, just to maintain certain systems. And I think that really becomes important when we're looking at overall, like it's almost healthcare versus sick care. And it's like, well, if you understand with age, part of the aging process, and you're like, hey, I just need to boost, this part of my body a little bit. It's not like, hey, I got to take something, a prescription every day. It's like, hey, I need to take one of these in the spring and the fall. And I think that really resonates with people
Mhm.
right now who, you go to the doctor and they get you, it feels like the ultimate upsell. They get you on something and then that causes some problems and they can, and then it's, it becomes a chain. And I'm like, this is an incredible business. I mean, it's not good for your health, but it's an incredible business model.
Right. Yeah.
I can't, we won't go too deep there, but that's what really I think people resonate is, it's control.
Hmm.
It's control. And you start to understand like the reality is our bodies are incredibly intelligent. And if we give them the right, the right tools to regenerate, like you can take care, you can take care of your own health instead of being at the whim of someone else. So I think
Right.
they
And someone else
fit. I
that's
mean,
ushering you into a system that does not produce a quote unquote cure.
yeah, it's yeah, exactly. That would be yeah, it's a big business. It's a totally different business model than and we have people that we have been with us 5 8 years since the beginning that are just on maintenance, and gives us a lot of confidence of the difference that we're making just watching people. There's some people that were like given a couple years to live. It's on our website. Somebody with a heart problem, and now they went through it. They took one maintenance, they got better. They took another. They went through another course, and now they're just on their maintenance phase. And you're like, wow, that gives you a lot of confidence in like, hey, this is like legit. I look at how low, you know, refund rates are. I've seen other businesses that, have, can sell something and they have 20, 30%. Yeah, it's just not even close.
Right.
And and then, you just watch like people stay 5 years, longer, and you're like, wait a minute, this is this is an alternative path to kind of going down, trying to go into one system. This is kind of it's it wouldn't, just like your podcast, it's a different way. And
Hmm.
what we see, it's more, I think it's much more effective.
Absolutely. Yeah. Um, I mean, it's also been for me very exciting and empowering and fascinating to see how there are protocols for different issues, right? And like, I mean, I'm a little bit of what I like to call like a highly functioning OCD type person,
Hmm.
where I just channel it toward fun health stuff. But
Yep.
I'll give a couple examples for our listeners so you guys could join it, because I've got 8,000 notes on Evernote, more than 8,000, and a number of them are around peptides because of some of the work that you guys have put out there and the awareness that you've built around this. But like, if someone's experiencing, let's say, a central nervous system issue, you might combine the Seralutin with the Venfort with the Svetinorm, Svetinorm. If they've got an immune issue, it might be Endolutin with Vladonix and Ventfort. And these protocols and combinations of peptides that are actually helping people get better and overcome challenges. It's what we think of when we discuss health and medicine, but it's not what most people are experiencing at this time. And I think that when people do have that experience, it's very exciting. It generates word of mouth buzz. And it's sort of like what people are like, this is what it's supposed to be. I don't know when we got away from it, but
yeah, it's for sure. And sorry, I get excited about this, and then you get somebody who, and I think these health packs, and Vlad can share more. And it's they've been researched. People have tried a number of those, and so they've went out, and then somebody will go through a health pack and they'll feel good, and then it's like, well, okay, you feel good. Do you feel 20 years younger? Like, because then keep going. Like you start realizing, like, okay, sometimes an issue, typically when you go through a first course, like you're like, oh, you're hitting, but you might have something underlying. One of the number one things we see is digestion and liver function.
Really, yeah,
is vitally important to our overall health. So somebody will work on
I'll add thyroid in there as well.
Yeah, thyroid in the hormones. And so we'll start, like, somebody will deal with something, and then it's like, okay, work on your digestion health, and balancing out your hormones. And then it's like, well, you start being able to optimize. I think it's really good. You start being able to optimize. And the great thing about these is if you don't say worst case scenario, you take something that you don't need. Well, basically, it's a building block. It's not like it's going to have a side effect. Your body's just
right.
Your body's not going to use it, and it's just going to get rid of it.
It's almost like a B12.
Yeah, exactly. It's that same process. Is, well, if you worst case you guess wrong, it's not going to have a problem. It's just your body gets rid of it, and
it's that asymmetric risk, very low downside but high upside, high potential upside.
Yep. And I think that's, that becomes really important. And with these packs, that's what we'll see is somebody will go through something, and Vlad's got this down. It's like, okay, you start knowing, like, oh, somebody's asking for peptides with this. Okay, what's the underlying process that like caused this? Because you start, kind of seeing this chain, the chain reaction. And you can really go to optimize your health. And deal with a number of issues.
Yeah, very exciting. And I'd like to talk about some of those health packs, and because now you have this community of people who have improved their health and given feedback on the different combinations of peptides that they've used, and then other people can benefit from their experience, which is, I think, a very exciting thing. It's sort of like citizen science, and us all learning from one another. Because we're in an era now where so many people are experiencing chronic fatigue. I'm talking to young men that are very concerned about their memory and brain function, and whether they have early onset Parkinson's, early onset neurodegenerative disease, Alzheimer's, that sort of thing. You guys mentioned digestive and liver issues, thyroid issues. I think one of the real things that's going on right now since 5G is radiation poisoning that's being attributed to other things. And then, of course, there's the big three killers of heart disease, neurodegenerative disease, and cancer. Do you guys have any stories that come to mind of people that have shared, that have used peptides, things that they've shared with you, different conditions that have been overcome that hold an emotional place in your heart?
Oh, yeah. I think for me, one of the big stories, I just got goosebumps just thinking about it.
I like those. I like goosebumps stories. We're
enjoying
your contribution.
Yeah, I was like, I hope you have a good bottle there loading up, because we'll talk about these, and both of us have a story with them, and just knowing, once you've went through it yourself, and you start to understand the process, and it makes a difference, and it totally changes your family. My family saw me really, really sick, and I thought, I thought I was dying. I was pretty sure I was dying at the time, and going through, and yeah, so tons of we have tons of
Well,
stories, but
tell the story. Tell that one. Crying out
well,
loud.
no,
You
so
can't just
this is
can't
early
just leave a
on. This
teaser
is
like, oh, I thought I was dying, and I'm
funny
still
enough.
here.
I've been
So
a year in
I
this
use
company.
peptides.
It's actually one of the blog posts, and it resonates with people. Is I've been traveling around the world for a year, and I've been in the company for about a year, and I was coming back, and I actually stopped to get, I was on a flight, and I was like, I didn't know if I was wondering if I was having a heart attack. I didn't know what was wrong. I was like just sick, and so I ended up going to Budapest at the time. Going to Budapest, we knew a really good international hospital there, and I go to the hospital and I have like every single test you can ever think of, blood tests, all of this going on, and the doctor comes back and true form in Europe, and they're just like, oh, you're just stressed, drink more wine. But I'm like, I do not just feel stressed. I feel like deathly sick.
In the
On
US,
the
they'd be
front.
like, you have 9 weeks to live.
Yeah.
Try to scare the
I probably
shit out of
spent
you.
3 months trying to get into it, get into a test, and then I just took it's one of the detox, one of the detox supplements, Zoibin, and I'm pretty sure I just gotten a
Oh,
parasite.
no kidding.
But
I've got some of that. That Vlad, you made that, didn't you?
I didn't, but I know the guy who did.
yeah,
Oh, okay.
and
Nice.
and this gets to the detox part of it. And I probably had them. I'd lived in the Middle East for quite a long time ago, and I had stomach problems for a really, really long time.
Mm.
And so I ended up taking some Zoibin and understanding like, oh, and then I started on courses of peptides, and I'm like, oh, wait a minute, like that restorative process,
Which ones were you
and you start
taking that
to
helped?
what did I take at the time, Vlad? I would have to
Stomach cord. I think it was stomach cord, super fort. So the stomach one, pancreas, and I think liver.
yeah. So which is interesting is I was like, okay, I have a stomach problem. Why do I want to take the liver and the pancreas one? But now I understand of like, when, one of the number one things when we get overloaded. So you get overloaded with, I think this is really important for people to understand is when you get overloaded with something, like what happens is it actually goes, when your body can't get it out, what is it going to do? It actually goes and stores itself in your tissues. And that's because your body, your liver, your detox pathways can't get it out. So this
Like,
is what
where's
happens a lot of
the
times.
the least awful, damaging place to put this?
Yeah, exactly. And which is crazy to think. It's the same thing with the health. The problem with the $80 billion industry is, it's the same thing as like your liver being able to get out toxins is central to losing weight. And
Yeah.
we go through that all the time. And it's like, well, if your liver is not getting it out and doesn't function well, forget about it. You'll get sick trying to lose
100%.
weight.
100%. I couldn't get rid of the last 10 pounds that I had on for a long time until I met a girl. And I want you to continue with your story. I thought this was going to be shorter. She had cancer, started doing coffee enemas, told me about them, how they clean the liver and everything. I started doing coffee enemas. I finally got off the last 10 pounds that I couldn't get off with like the craziest workouts, nutrition plans, everything. I got it from cleaning my liver. So I 100% agree with you. I'm sharing that so people know the role that liver plays in weight loss. It's not just diet and exercise. That's nonsense.
Yeah, and this is what happens, when you're, going back to the story about taking liver peptides, and now we've really perfected it of like, hey, sometimes and you look at enemas, there's so many different types of detoxes, and that's just to like get excess toxins out. It's it's like a coffee enema. All you're doing is bypassing this stuff having to go through go through liver, go through other parts, or it gets, it's one of the things of I don't do them, but it's like colon cleanses are because those toxins really cause problems. And central to everything is balancing out your hormones and then getting your liver to take take the toxins out. And that's what's interesting. We have some case studies where people will lose. It's not uncommon somebody to lose 40, 50 pounds once their liver is clean, and you're like. And it's like, well, because it's not that, it's just inflammation, and you think about it that, somebody overweight that like, gets puffed up really quickly. And you're like, well, that's inflammation from drugs, like different drugs they've taken, and it just goes in your tissues. And then there's no way your liver can get it out. So, but that goes to the story why Vlad was like, oh, you need to take this for your liver and pancreas. I didn't understand it at the time. Now, 3 years in, and we see everybody, it's like, it's almost challenge. I have a hard time sometimes when friends ask for this funny story here, building upon this is, I'll offer friends help. I'll tell them about this, even one of my mentors, and they don't really, because it sounds too good to be true. They just kind of bypass it. And then twice in the past month, my mentor said, yeah, I started working with a functional health doctor. And he said to do the exact same thing that you said, to take peptides in the liver and do that. And I'm like, oh, why do you, but you just start to realize it's so, it's part of the problem is just so simple how it works, and it's so effective. You don't have to do a lot of talking. We don't have to do a lot of talking building it up, but it is interesting. And, multiple friends are like, oh yeah, have you heard about these peptides and how they work? And I'm like, man, I think we've talked about this 3 or 4 times, but you just get it. You just get the process.
Well, there's also a ton of our contacts in the functional medicine space. Like, I love collaborating with people. And when I talk to them about some of the products that you guys have, they're like, yeah, I've been meaning to dive into that. I keep hearing good things, but I don't know what everyone does. And I don't have a good enough understanding to recommend it to our clientele at this point in time, so I think it's definitely catching on, and it just hasn't hit a critical mass yet. And I think this episode will be part of it doing that. Vlad, I'm kind of curious, do you remember your rationale and sort of what you were thinking was going on with Brian when you were kind of like, all right, you need to take the Zoibin, which is these different essential oils for parasite detox and getting the bad bugs out of the body. And then you talked about pancreas and stomach and liver. Like, what was going on in your head? What did you see? And what was the pattern recognition in Brian's situation?
Well, I mean, once he figured out that it was something related to his digestion, and I think he mentioned something, along the lines of, feeling bloated and just discomfortable. So, it was kind of a little bit more of a shotgun approach of, the only thing it could really be is digestion, especially when you're traveling, right? You're eating different kinds of food, you're exposed to different kinds of bacteria, to different kinds of bugs in the, that maybe you haven't been exposed to. So either, parasitic, or, your digestive system just did not like whatever you were at. And I think he was out in Asia at that time before he went to Budapest. So I know Asia is pretty.
All sorts of sushi going on, Brian. Little questionable sushi stands.
Some questionable sushi, some questionable street. I go back now and I look at, it's after living all over, and I've been sick enough, on the process, I can just you just look and it kind of gets that smell. You're like, nope.
One night in Bangkok and the world's your oyster. Yeah. You're not having. You're a little more cautious now than you were in your party days. You're like, I'm not going through that again.
Yeah. So I mean, for me, it was the other big thing with Zoibin that it does is it helps balance the flora of your digestive system. So so it's got 2 ways you could take it. You do 1 teaspoon for 7 days for parasites, biofilm, and then you can do
Candida.
And thank you, Candida.
Just like fungus, parasites, and biofilms that protect stealth infections.
Yeah. So, so you do 7 days of that, but it also, the essential oils are great for your flora. You just don't want to be taking a teaspoon, or I think it's half a teaspoon, because it's going to just make your stomach upset. So either it's his flora, right? Something's wrong with his digestive of his flora, parasites, biofilm, candida, one of those, or it's a function of his, liver, kidney, or liver, stomach, pancreas. So, and with that kind of cleanse, you kind of hit everything. And if you didn't hit it, that means it's not part of your digestive system. So,
okay. So that makes sense. And I think I think a lot of people are experiencing higher liver enzymes, and it's I've wondered, I have theories. I think we're kind of figuring this out in real time, but I think so many people are in chronic fight, flight, freeze, chronic sympathetic dominance, that they're not detoxing just because they're not in rest and digest parasympathetic. I think that's part of the issue, where like, even if you are exposed to the same amount of toxins, but you're super stressed all day and you're not going into parasympathetic, you're going to start accumulating toxins and it's going to be an issue. And then, you know, you're going to bottleneck at your liver. Right. Um, and we're also seeing now there's this explosion of semaglutide, tirzepatide, these GLP-1 agonists that you know, glucagon like peptide 1, that help people lower their blood sugar, have less hunger, and subsequently lose body fat. But they're also fucking made by Eli Lilly, you know, the biggest pharmaceutical company of all pharmaceutical companies. Does that not raise a red flag? You know what I mean? Like, I understand the appeal, and I've messed with tirzepatide, so I'm a hypocrite, you know. But I'm like, are we in a situation where people's blood sugar is super high, and then we're turning to pharmaceuticals or things that are developed by pharmaceutical companies, you know, and we're sort of saying, no, that's just a peptide? Where could they take a pancreas peptide, like you did in Brian's case, and lower their blood sugar and increase their insulin sensitivity?
Oh yeah. I mean, theoretically, right? I mean, you know,
Have you guys seen that in any case studies?
I have seen it a couple times with some of our customers. So
Brian's laughing.
Yeah,
I know, and we have to be careful about what we say, because it's just,
yeah,
that's what it is.
I had a flash of compliance that went through my head.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, let's have an honest conversation without breaking any compliance rules. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, well, then you're like, what's it?
Can I say anything? Should we just stare at each other for the next half an hour?
There you go. No, I mean, you know, but we can't all we can do is watch what people do, because they're their own, you know, they're taking care of their own health. And just watching them get better. And people, you know, exploring things and just seeing like, oh wow, this was very restorative, and this was very restorative in the process. And then I've personally done stuff and then done lab. I'm a big believer, for me, on my health journey, is I'll do labs before and after. A lot of times, like, I'll know when I have a test, and then I'll take a test, I'll try, we'll do something. I think that's how you learn. But watching this happen, and just some of the functional, the ways that people can take their blood pressure. My mom was on blood pressure medicine, and she started doing natural treatments for it. And it's like, okay, cool, she could bring down her, and it's like, oh wow, she doesn't need blood pressure medicine to regulate this.
Do you remember what she was doing?
She weaned herself off of it without, I can't go too much in the details of it, but she worked with a functional medicine doctor, and it was all, just a lot of stress related, a lot of hormone balancing and trauma. There was some trauma issues there, that the functional medicine doctor worked. And it was like, oh, by the way, her blood pressure started, resuming. And she'll go, funny enough, we probably would have had her do some peptides, but over the summer we couldn't get, it was, we were dealing with supply issues, and this recently happened. This isn't a long term, this isn't, this was 2 months ago that she was doing this, and now, she's doing much better. And it's, it's a little harder for her to get away from, because it's so different. Like, I'm much more, I've traveled, I've seen things done 26 different ways. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like, the evidence is it works, but we're even starting to see, those type of people go, wow, I've tried this, and wow, this actually works. And, my wife's like, her friends are like, hey, can I use it for this? Can I use it for that? They're getting quite interested because they're seeing the results. That's really what it comes down to.
The one
Vlad, please.
So one of the things I really always recommend for people with diabetes is there's a product that we sell. It's a different product, and I hate to be the guy who keeps pushing product, but this is my favorite product, period.
You guys are on because I love your products, and I think you guys are real MFers. And my audience knows I don't mess around with anything that's not real.
Yeah. So this product is called Benagene, Benagene. I think it's
orthomolecular products or something, right?
Yeah,
OAR.
We used to be orthomolecular products. We now get it directly from the source, which is Mr. Al Cash, out in, I think he's in SoCal. But actually, yeah, he's in San Diego. No, UCLA. He was part of Los Angeles. And this product, for me, the thing that it does for me is it's like a cup of coffee, like a really good. I'm ADHD, so
Oh yeah,
coffee
did you
does not
notice?
work for me.
Yeah.
But Benadryl is like what a cup of coffee should feel.
Yeah.
So it gets energy, gets focus up, it increases your mood. But one of the side effects they found with it was it regulates your blood sugar.
A
And
side effect.
they
Doesn't sound like
did
the
a
right word.
whole study for it to regulate blood sugar, and they were actually going to be submitting it as through FDA to develop that as a blood sugar medication. So
Really?
it is very, very effective at having your body regulate your blood sugar.
Are you using the lozenges or the capsules?
Capsules.
The capsules. I've taken that and noticed a huge increase in energy now that you mention it, but I did not isolate a variable or attribute it to anything in particular. What do you attribute it to? What, so it's like the Benagine is this,
So
right? It looks like a similar product to what Dave Asprey has in one of his the carboxyl oxo, I don't know.
it's axle. I call it axle-acetic acid.
Right. Yeah.
How I call it. Just that's how I've been calling it for the last 7 years.
Yeah.
Well, that's how you say it. I've written it like 100 times. I didn't even know. I never said it out loud.
It's totally different when you're reading it yourself than when you got to say it. I'm like, fuck, I got to say this now. I'm just sound like a retard.
Yeah.
So, so the signs that I've had, and we actually have a YouTube video where we did a little webinar with Al Cash about the product. So the way that the axle-acetic acid is an essential acid that is used in the Krebs cycle. So in the Krebs cycle is when your cells split, right? The axle-acetic acid is just an important ingredient in making sure when your cells split, they do so properly. And the initial kind of study came out on trying to decrease aging. So what they figured out, when your cells are splitting, right, if your axle-acetic acid reserves are low, you will start having more broken telomeres. So you'll start having frayed telomeres. And because the acid is so critical to the replication of the DNA, if you don't have an abundant supply of it, you start getting frayed ends, which obviously they've figured out is what contributes to aging. So that was originally how this was developed, was just solely anti-aging to prevent, essentially telomere shortening. But
very interesting.
I think because of the Krebs cycle, and what that acid does, I think it actually does give us just energy through just the ability of having an efficient Krebs cycle. That's kind of my theory.
It reminds me a little bit, just in the sense of like NAD plus or niacin, which gets converted to NAD plus. It's like if you're deficient there, you're going to be tired, right?
Yep.
So I think there's a lot of people listening that recognize their hormones are out of balance. I mean, I heard something recently. It was just abysmal in terms of sperm motility, testosterone. Every marker of male hormonal health is on a nosedive over the last 50 years. And when you ask someone that's over the age of 11, would you like to balance your hormones and get the toxins out? They're usually like, yes. It's pretty clear. I mean, even when we look at, I was watching an interview with Brock Lesnar, who's like a WWE wrestler. He was the former UFC heavyweight champion. I've joked that, like, this guy is almost, if you had to pick an alpha male for our species, it's Brock Lesnar. He's like, he looks like a Viking. He could actually like fuck everyone up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, balancing out hormones, it's an interesting one. And I've been doing some research, writing more about this, kind of this balancing out hormones, because you start seeing different things, like the liver. Like we talk about the liver and something, and then it's like I used to couldn't take B12 for a long time. Like I would
in what form?
This is interesting. and I would just any form of B12, I would get like really, really sick and jittery and not feel good.
Okay.
And then I would get really tired, and I was like, "What's going on?" You know, and but this kind of comes to balancing out all the systems, and I'm like, "Okay, what's going on? Like, this isn't normal." And this is when I thought I was definitely sick too, because I would just like, I'm low energy. I'll take B12. Let's do this. I'm gonna feel better, and then I get even sicker, upset stomach, and just mentally was really, really in a dark place. And then I started
Wow, that's
learning
the
like,
opposite of what most people experience.
yeah. It's and then you go partly, well, I thought I was dying. But you go, okay, well, where is B12? B12, the uptake isn't, where is the uptake and the absorption of B12? Well, it's actually in the same place as bile salts, lower intestine, like your actual uptake of bile salt, that's one of the things, you produce bile, and but it's one of the things your body reabsorbs bile salts in the lower intestine. Same place that it's uptaking B12. So what was interesting is I wasn't creating enough bile to break down food and all of this.
Was it
And
a
so
gallbladder issue?
this is a hormone. This gets back to all the the hormone issue. Having too much toxins. And, you think about like, we don't realize that your gallbladder will create bile and balance it out. Your liver also does quite a bit of this. And so I was getting sick on the reuptake, because I was deficient. I wasn't creating enough bile to break down foods. And then I was like, your body's trying to suck all of this out, all this bile out the bile salts when you're going through your digestion. And it was like this downward cycle of but this is what happens when you're in this every day and you hear about what's going on. It's like, oh wow, I couldn't, like, balancing out hormones or balancing out the digestive system. Why is it so critical? Is you don't realize that, like, oh, where I absorb bile is the same place I absorb B12. And
Yeah.
not many people realize that that's one of the few things that our body recycles is bile
Right.
salts.
And a lot of people, I mean, my buddy Dr. John Lawrence, who's in Sarasota, he takes a lot of binders at night before bed because he believes a lot of toxins get recycled in the bile. And if you take the right binders, you can get them out, especially mold and things like that just kind of end up staying in the body, where you could be doing all these healthy things. And if you're following the nutrition, exercise, so on and so forth, but if you're not binding, you're kind of just in this mobilization loop with toxins.
Yeah, that's why I think most people stop. You kind of look at why most people stop, and I stopped was doing all those things, and I was getting more and more sick. Now I understand it. It's like, oh, you're actually popping toxins into your bloodstream. And I started taking, one of the things I started taking was chlorella. You can take different things, but chlorella is like this. It's funny. I was taking this, and this is part of getting better on the health journey, is getting so sick. And I was doing saunas, yoga, and I was getting really, really sick. Well, once I started figuring out, oh, I just got too much toxins, I got to figure out a way to absorb them out of the bloodstream, because
you were mobilizing but not eliminating.
Yep. I couldn't eliminate. And then you start looking at liver, this was all the same time, the bile issue. So I'm not able to break down and get rid of stuff. And then I started taking chlorella, and then my wife is like, you look like 5 years younger. Like, what's going on? You went from sick to looking young. And then we did some research, and it's like, oh yeah, chlorella helps with and she's like,
you're like, yeah, let me tell you what I'm doing in the bedroom.
Yeah, exactly. And she's like, grab me a bag. She's like, grab me a bag of this stuff. No, it's but it's all just so interrelated. That's what blows me away about all of this, is you go, oh wow, you can restore that, and then once your body can produce and balance it out, but it takes a little bit. Like, you need to do some prep. If you come off toxins and you don't take a binder, it's one of the few times where peptides don't get like. And Vlad knows that. Vlad will, like, literally, he'll be like, buy this. If you take some peptides and you don't get results fairly, we don't see results, it's like, oh, you got too much like, we know it now. It's like, oh, you got too much toxins. And you just got to get the toxins out, and you'll get
even doing like some of the things from traditional Chinese medicine where they're like, let me see your tongue. If it's like super coated and stagnant, they're like, all right, you're loaded with toxins and you're too wet. I think we're now coming to this sort of crescendo of all of these different disciplines coming together, and people are picking what is the most effective, high upside, low or no downside approach to get the result that I want. And I want to kind of ask, so to circle back, we were talking about balancing hormones and getting the toxins out. And all of the statistics are that male hormones are on a nosedive, whether we're talking about testosterone, IGF-1, HGH, sperm motility, whatever. Guys are more depressed than ever. We're fatter than ever. Not all of us, but if we're talking about us as hey, we're all in this together type situation, it's not looking good. So balancing the hormones and getting the toxins out. And I was making this reference to Brock Lesnar, who I believe is like, if you had to pick an alpha male of our species, it's just funny. That guy, he looks like a modern day Viking that would kill all the other Vikings. UFC heavyweight champion. He crushes it in the WWE. 46, still doing a lot of big things. And then you just look at younger guys now. I'm like, there's nothing I could do to compete with a guy like Brock Lesnar. No. And then a lot of the young guys now are getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And like, there's still outliers that are incredibly muscular and athletic and big, but it's like our species is shrinking and getting less muscular. And I think part of that is we're loaded with plastics and toxins, and we're on our phones all the time, and we're not outside. We're not getting sunlight. We're not connecting with one another and exchanging energy, the energy of our heart and our mind and all these things. So if someone came to you and you were like, the problem with this man, or we'll kind of play like fun scenario. This isn't advice. I'm just scenario analysis, right? So imagine there's a fake scenario for entertainment purposes where a guy in his 40s or 50s, it's pretty clear that he has hormone imbalance and he's toxic. What do you do?
Well, first, for me, there is a number of levels of toxicity, right? So we sell a full line of different detox products. So for me, figuring out where the toxins are. If it's more of a chemical toxins, we sell a coffee enema suppository. So do we go for his liver, kidneys? Do we go
vitamins, right?
Yep, vitamins, exactly. Is it a heavy metal, toxins in there? Sometimes we just do all three, right? We sell a little pack where you do go through all three. And I usually try to recommend going through a detoxification first. And, if they can do all three, that's perfect. If they can't, they can either look at alternative ways to get rid of the toxins and, move on from there. And then after that, we try to go into the peptides. So, and the peptides are going to be your adrenal, your testes, prostate, and I can't remember the fourth one, but
endolutin. Endolutin?
No, endolutin is actually not part of that bundle. So, but
I didn't know if the pineal.
Yeah, I mean, pineal is incredible for everything. So I probably recommend the pineal one anyway.
I've never recommended that to someone that hasn't been like, I notice a difference.
Actually, just the three. It's testes, prostate, and adrenal. So those three I would recommend, probably for 30 days. So, and I kind of go through a little bit of a, short 2-minute spiel on how to take them to people. So, and I do actually do consultations with people. If anybody's interested, we do offer free consultations for most of the Fridays between 5 and 6, Pacific. I just have 1 to 2 consultations a day. But
that's pretty awesome, actually.
Yeah.
How do they book that if they want that?
They can reach out to our customer service, or they can go on our my Calendly link, which I think is just calendly.com/QI supplements. So it's
same as the website, just Calendly.
Yeah, so that'll be able to book, a 15 or a 30-minute call with me. So what I always recommend for people is when they're starting on the peptides, you're going to feel a difference. So you should be able to feel a difference between 24 hours to about 10 days. So is the usual response time. And the way that the peptides work in your body is they work kind of like a reverse sine graph, right? So you have the most amount or reverse exponential graph, where you have the most of your improvements are going to happen at the very, very beginning. So, and then as you keep taking them for a longer time, you're going to not see a day-to-day improvement. The difference of how much building your body has to do, how much tissue rebuilding your body has to do, is going to be when you reach that plateau. If you're very healthy, right, and everything's fine, you'll feel it for 3-4 days, and then you feel nothing. Everything else is start functioning. You'll have better, whatever you're taking it for. If you're taking the pineal, you'll have better sleep. You'll start being able to function more, but you get to that plateau. And when you hit that plateau, that's a good indicator of, whether or not how much peptides you need to keep taking. If you're at your 30-day mark or 40-day mark and you still haven't hit the plateau, that means there's a lot of tissue that needs to get rebuilt. Most people hit that plateau within 30 days. So, and usually when they hit that 30 days, I usually recommend they get a follow-up one. So they need to do another course of probably 20 days. But it's also going to depend if you do
right after. So 50 days straight.
No, take a 30-day break.
Okay.
So take 30 days, 30-day break, and then take it for 20 days. The best thing you can possibly do is have hormone tests. So that's the best way you can do, because if you have a test before, you take it for 30 days, take it after, and you can see where you're at. And then you can, instead of, using it by feeling or by, muscle testing or whatever, solution you have to figure out how your body's feeling, then after that you can but based on data, you can pull up your blood work and it'll say, hey, your testosterone is still low, or it's marginally low, or whatever, you can kind of see where the numbers at and where you want it to be. And then you can continue to taking it, longer.
That makes sense. Awesome. Would you guys be okay with, to kind of, before we land the plane, run through a rapid fire few different scenarios that we all probably hear a lot from people?
Yeah.
And you'll kind of do like scenario analysis. These are what people that have experienced that have purchased on our site and had a good result with, just like fun sort of entertainment. Okay. So chronic fatigue. I'm tired all the time. I've always been pretty healthy. I played sports back in the day, and now I just feel like it's hard to get out of bed, and I'm hitting lulls throughout the day. Blah blah blah. Go.
I get those people all the time.
Right.
The big thing I start looking at. So one thing with the peptides, I'll do a quick 30-second spiel. Peptides do not work on treating symptoms. So to clarify, if you have in modern medicine, if you have a headache, you take ibuprofen, right? All the ibuprofen's doing is it's stopping you from feeling your headache. You're still having a headache. You're just not feeling it, right? Peptides do not work this way. So one of the most important things is figuring out your root cause of your issue. So I always have about a 5 to 10 minute conversation of, okay, well, you're tired. How are you sleeping, right? Are you sleeping well? If they are sleeping well, right, and they have great sleep, then it's not your pineal, right? Because your pineal regulates your sleep. You're probably looking at adrenal and thyroid issues. Probably, especially if they were an athlete in the past, you're probably looking at an overexerted adrenal gland. If they were.
So you're talking glandicort right now?
Yep. So I would probably do a glandicort. And if they have, a thyroid issue in there, I'd probably throw the thyroid in there. One of the things I've seen, and I probably throw in pineal if they don't have good sleep. Most of the time, people do not get good sleep. I think if I talk to 10 people, 1 out of 10 will say, I sleep great. So nobody sleeps great. So pineal, adrenal, thyroid.
You're not alone.
And so that would be my case. But, obviously always try to find the root cause. What started first, right? Did your sleep start first, or did your tiredness start first? And then you started having bad sleep.
Awesome. Brian, anything you'd add there?
Nope. I defer. I would. It's funny because it's just like you hear it and it's like, yep, the same thing. It's amazing now. You like hear
Makes sense,
these
right?
and yeah, and
When
we're
you're
like,
thinking when you're thinking in a
yep.
systems fashion,
Yeah.
there's a lot less room for ambiguity.
Yeah, no, exactly.
And it's this, yeah, and that's it's the same thing over and over. People might not describe it a little bit different, and it's like, but isn't this? It's this, and it's like, it's not like, hey, you can't. It's like, okay,
Okay.
shoot, let's go, let's bring it.
Pain, inflammation. I wake up in the morning, my body hurts. I can do things like ice baths and saunas and blah, 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 but I'm often experiencing pain in my low back, or when I work out, I'm experiencing delayed onset muscle soreness way longer than I otherwise would. What's going on? What can I do?
So I would look at that as multiple issues going on. I would probably look at, there's probably some toxicity going on in there.
Which would point you toward liver,
kidneys. So I probably, point at the liver kidney detox we have. Xenoplex.
Xenoplex?
Yeah. Or no, Glytamins.
Oh, Glytamins. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Common people with this condition have B12, like the B12 we were talking about. You hit right on this one.
Glytamins.
B12 absorption.
Yeah, Glytamins. So I would probably recommend them to do 1 box of Glytamins. Once they finish the box of Glytamins, I would also recommend them with the pineal. Just because if they're not resting well, the body just may not have enough REM sleep to rebuild itself.
Makes sense.
Replenish all of the other organs. So and then I would go through kidney liver peptides, probably recommend those. And once they go with those, the next step would probably, looking at muscle peptides, and more of the physical, active physical peptides. So that would be adrenal, muscle, cartilage peptides, and blood. And so blood will also be somewhere in the mix there.
And for guys, if you're listening to this and you're like driving and want to write all this down or can't write all this down, if you just go to qisupplements.com, so qisupplements.com, and you type in liver peptide, it'll take you to the specific liver peptide that you need. If you type in like pineal peptide, it'll take you to endolutin, and you'll be able to find what you need. So you don't have to feverishly try to take down notes while you're driving and potentially put everyone at risk. Okay, awesome. So this is,
we also have it on our website. You can sort down by system, so you can figure out brain. You click on brain, it'll bring all the products up for brain. Liver, it'll bring up all the products related to liver. So
what if someone had, that's a perfect transition. What if someone had the earliest signs of memory loss, neurodegenerative disease, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and they said, Vlad, what do I do? I want to stop this. My dad had Parkinson's. What do I do?
Yeah, I would recommend Benadryl, just because it helps at least me with my brain function. I definitely need some right now.
I need some Benadryl too.
Yeah, I would put them on the Brain Cell Works, which is an oral.
Oh, that stuff's fantastic, actually.
Right?
Yeah, I do 5 to 7 sprays of this stuff. So it's got like alpha GPC. What else is in there? Ginkgo biloba.
Yeah, it's just really good on just revitalizing your brain.
So. Resveratrol as well. Yeah, it's awesome. Awesome stuff. The spray. I was actually, did you guys make that or did someone else make that?
No, I work with a lady called Marie Day who makes it out in Los Angeles.
I like that stuff a lot. I was almost thinking like I would love to take that and add a few things in, because I like the spray too. It's different. It's like the pills feel cumbersome. The spray's like, you remember your first Banaka experience?
Wow.
It's like
I feel like I'm having Banaka. It's not so much of a tedious rigmarole.
Yeah,
anyway.
and actually I love the flavor of it. It's got like a little bit of a minty flavor. So
we'll just start mixing it in drinks. I'll come up with some cocktails with the
Yeah,
Health
exactly.
health cocktail.
So yeah, and then I would add central nervous system peptide. So because that'll cover your brain. So and maybe throw in pineal. So there's actually 5 core peptides that every person should be taking.
Let's talk about those.
Try to implement those as much as you can into every person's peptide regimen.
So what are Vlad's? We'll call these Vlad's Big Five.
Vlad's Big Five. So they're going to be, and I'll put them in order. So from most important to least important.
Yeah.
Pineal, the endolutin, which is your pineal peptide.
That's my favorite.
Yep. Followed by thymus, which is Vladonics. Followed by like a tie between Ventfort and central nervous system. So
does Ventfort help dudes that have erectile dysfunction?
I don't think it does because it helps with blood vessels.
Okay.
So it may not necessarily help with blood delivery.
I saw that and I was like, these guys could be sitting on a gold mine.
I know, right?
Well, just get one of your listeners. We'll send out some packs, and you got to give us a before and after. So,
so Ventfort, and what was the other one that it's tied with?
Nervous system, which is sirloin.
Yeah, I like sirloin a lot too.
And then the 5th one is going to be your cartilage peptide, which is sigomir. So, and the thing about the cartilage peptide, most people are like, why cartilage? Well, cartilage, you have cartilage literally everywhere, from the top of your head to the bottom of your toes. It's all
it's part of like what helps the electricity flow through our body, right?
Yes. It also helps with hair, skin, nails, just it helps. It's a general anti-aging peptide. But the one big thing that most people don't realize, it actually helps reverse telomere frame. So they actually did a study, and they actually were able to prove that taking the cartilage peptide makes your telomeres longer. So
do you think that equates to longer lifespan?
Yes. They actually, another one, they did a 15-year study on the pineal peptide. And the target of that study was to figure out, does it make people live longer? And they actually had a positive results. So they had the people who were taking the sugar capsules versus the people who were taking the pineal for 15 years. The people who had the pineal ended up having a much better health, and their body was at a much younger biological or age, not biological.
This was endolutin.
Yeah.
I want to say what 18% was it 18? So it was like 18 to 35. I'd have to look at because we pulled up the research, and that's just talking about lifespan. It's not talking. I'm a big Peter Attia fan, and it's like that improved on the health span. Wasn't in there, but the actual lifespan was. And
right.
It's like it's I mean it's amazing. It really is amazing how much research, like true research, they have on this stuff. It's pretty incredible.
And there's a 5th one, right, Vlad? We got pineal, thymus. You did a tie. Okay, so you did. Was the tie?
Yeah, it was tie.
All right.
Yep.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay, or blood and central nervous system, and then the final one was the cartilage peptide.
Okay, so this is fun, Brian. You brought this up, and then we'll land the plane because you guys have been super generous with your time, and I think everyone that is enjoying this and wants to dive deeper can go to Cheese Supplements, QISupplements.com. They've got the link to book a consult with Vlad or just pick up everything that we've talked about on this call. Is it possible? Are we able to set up a Biohacks discount code or anything? There's no pressure. I know we're
thinking about that. Yeah.
I'm like, we're in real time here, but if we can set up a Biohacks discount code, I don't give a shit about commission or anything like that, but just to hook the people up with a little bit of a little bit of a discount, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
So glad you're in front of the computer, right?
Huh?
Yeah, Biohack.
Yeah, Biohacks. BIOHACKS. That'd be cool. Just don't even worry about paying me anything. Just give them a little bit of off the stuff. That'd be cool. So with Peter Attia, he talks a lot about the big 3 killers being cancer, heart disease, cerebrovascular disease. That being number 2, and then number 3 being neurodegenerative disease. if we were to quote unquote recommend in just like a fun scenario, entertainment purposes only analyses, if we were going to go through each one, cancer, heart disease, neurodegenerative disease, what would be the protocols of peptides that you would recommend to minimize your odds of dying from one of the big three?
Well, for the big C word.
Oh yeah, you can't even say it these days. And then they're just like, "Oh, you're going to save the people we're trying to extract as much as we can from before they die."
I mean, the biggest thing is immune system. So pineal thymus are going to be your biggest ones on that first on cancer.
So endolutin vladonics.
Yep, endolutin vladonics, and I would probably do the whole five, right? Just do the core peptides. So that's going to just help on that level.
Okay, I like that. Heart disease. Heart disease or cerebrovascular disease. I think cerebrovascular, like circulatory issues in the brain, hypoxia in the brain are a big issue. So I'm interested what you say here.
So that one will be the heart peptide, blood vessel peptides, central nervous system.
So and
peptides. Get the detox in. That's one of the. Go check your research on getting your detox in with all three of these. Go check out the research on what it says about dealing with some of these problems. I have a mentor who had a heart attack. Had a heart attack recently. Oh, you're going slow-mo too. But had a heart attack recently, and when he was going through the process, you start looking at like, okay, like with, your body is built very well to get toxins out of your body. If you have cholesterol, it's like, well, and so I said, go do detox and read the research on this. How does it get out of your body? Like because what's really interesting is, some people can eat terribly and have zero problems with cholesterol or any of those things. And it's like, how does it get out of your body? And even weight, like it's pretty sad. You want to kill an $80 billion weight loss industry. And what doctors would tell you is get your liver functioning well and get the toxins out and you'll be fine. Like that's 80% of it. And so with all of these things, like it's like we always say, it's like detox, give it some time to heal and then restore it with the peptides. It's pretty much that pattern all the time.
Yeah. I think there's a fascinating story that some of our listeners could look up if they want to, but it's this guy. Have you guys heard of Joe Tippins?
Sounds familiar.
He was basically diagnosed with stage 4 C word. And I'm actually going to start saying C word after all this.
Yeah.
After all the cuts in and out. He was diagnosed with stage 4 C word. I should probably come up with an alternative for S4 as well. And he started using Safeguard, which is essentially it's febendazole, but it's given to dogs as an anti-parasitic, a 3-day protocol where you have 222 milligrams for every 10 pounds of dog weight, and then you do that for 3 days in a row, and it gets rid of all sorts of different parasites, hookworm, roundworm, etc. It's probably one of the most well-rounded anti-parasitics. After multiple failed rounds of chemo, he started taking a packet of Safeguard a day, 222 milligrams of febendazole, and he is still alive today and has been cancer-free the entire time.
Wow.
So if anyone is still listening to this podcast and and
it's not
able to make the association, there's an association there. It does not mean all, but some.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think with all those conditions, if you look at like, if you're, the good news is if you're waiting till the end and you're sick, like there's the time before, getting rid of them is, that's, but there's always warning signs of it. And once you see some of that, you can make a difference. I think that's what Peter Attia is so right on. Like, it's like, here are the markers you want to hit in your life. You want to hit these certain markers. However you do it is really, really good. So we've done a great job. We help people hit those markers using, we've done it with peptide bioregulators and, helping people detox. That's like how we help people hit those health markers. And it's like anything, there's always going to be other ways to do it and other ways, how people handle it. This has been really successful for us. And, we've seen like thousands of people like work through issues now. And, that's the path that they follow.
Awesome. Last one, guys. Vlad, Brian, neurodegenerative disease, or at least they're saying, hey, I'm a firefighter. I'm still physically active. I'm in my late 30s, but I'm noticing tons of memory issues, and I'm forgetting where I'm putting things, so on and so forth. But on paper, their health looks good.
Yeah,
Go for it.
That one, I do believe in parasites in the brain a little bit. So,
yeah,
I would, just as a precaution, go through the parasite cleanse.
With Zoyden?
Yeah,
the Zoidman.
And this is if this was like me or somebody really close to me, I would just be like, do this just in case, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, if you're on a budget that, maybe that one's not as big, but I would do Benagine, Brain Cell Works, Central Nervous System Peptides, Blood Peptide, and Pineal.
I like that. What are the blood peptides?
Benfort.
All right. I've not tried that one. I love that. I think that's great. Also had a fascinating conversation that you guys just might enjoy, and I'm sure our listeners will enjoy. But I've had Lyme disease twice, and the second time I didn't want to do a ton of ozone and everything else, so I flew to Germany and went to Clinic St. George and did extreme whole body hyperthermia, where they basically heated me up to 107 degrees for 2 hours, and then did the same thing a week later, because they'd found that the bacteria Borrelia burgdorferi, that's very similar to the bacteria that causes syphilis, dies around 106 degrees. So if you heat the person up to 107 degrees and keep them there for 2 hours, it kills a lot of the bacteria. Well, I was talking to the doctor that runs the clinic, and I said, hey, what else have you seen that you feel like is going to be mainstream knowledge in the next 50 to 100 years? And Dr. Dow said basically that Alzheimer's is essentially a Lyme disease that has got into the brain and multiplied.
Huh?
And he's like, there's tons of studies now, some of them out of Harvard, showing 60 to 90% plus of the time when they do brain biopsies on people with Alzheimer's, they find Borrelia burgdorferi in the brain. And he goes, and if you actually take care of that and don't get certain injections, introduce these bacteria into your body, potentially see the Tuskegee experiments, you should be pretty good. He goes, I think that will be the future of healing and medicine when that's on the awareness of the collective consciousness. So I want to share that with you guys and our listeners, obviously. A little aggressive, perhaps, but fuck it.
Yeah, I mean, you see some people that, that like, heating up your body, like the research on that, it's it's like you've seen sauna and cold. Well, people did that forever, but now it's huge mainstream. But it's like, well, there's some incredible healing effects behind things that just don't cost it. Like, it doesn't cost. Yeah, you got to spend a little money to go in, where you're doing much more intense. But even just basics, it doesn't. Cold bath, like, how do you monetize that? Unless it's too cheap. There's nothing to monetize. It's with some of these.
But if you do it yourself, it makes sense.
Yep, exactly.
You're saving the money on the healthcare and medical bills.
Yep,
and you don't have to get insurance, maybe.
Yeah, and I think that's what we're going to see, is people realize, like, there's a business model that you don't have to tie into, that you can just, you can manage. And, I think more and more just people are turning, and by need too. I mean, healthcare is expensive. Pay $1,000 a month for the right to go to, my 2 kids, wife, $1,000 a month for the right to go to the doctor, not to, pay for anything. So people, I think it's just a practical business sense that people are looking for alternatives. They don't want to go that path. And, it's like anything. I think it'll push a lot of interesting things, like you're saying about, different, disease, things along those lines that are just completely different. And it's like, oh yeah, these work well. Yeah, it's not expensive. It's, but it is, that doesn't mean anything about potency, which is much different. I mean, I spend a lot of, sorry, I'm on a rant now. I spent a lot of time in Asia, and you deal with healthcare. And give you an example. My wife had a herniated disc in the back here during that time. Couldn't get in. 9 months to wait for.
Acupuncture.
She got some manual traction, and yeah, they're like, we don't do surgeries for herniated discs unless it's like sticking out. And then like she literally couldn't get out of bed, taking drugs every day, couldn't walk. And then like 2 months later, she's like, fine. And then we went back to Summer to do one more. And you're like, 3 months treatment. It costs us approximately $2,000, and she's totally fine, didn't need any surgery. And you're like, huh, like this is a different, it's a different world. But the more you're, what?
Or a $200,000 operation.
Yeah,
right.
yeah. The more you're exposed,
but my insurance covers it, so it's fine. It's like that's the mindset. It's like, guys, we're in a ridiculousness loop.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm just so exposed to it now. It's like, oh yeah, I can see that working, and you just follow the day. Follow like, hey, this is working. This doesn't have downside. Well, okay, great. Like that doesn't mean it's not super effective. No one's talking about it. Yeah, it's probably really effective. So
totally. There was the College of Traditional Chinese Medicine had like a practice clinic across from one of my first places in downtown Chicago, and they would let all of the students practice for $10. So what would normally cost me like $80 to $150 in downtown Chicago, I could go have these students who were like chomping at the bit to prove themselves do for $10. And I had some of the best acupuncture of my life. I'd go into these like 2-hour just zonk out sessions and feel completely restored, like a newborn baby when I was done, that you don't always necessarily have with someone who's been doing it for 20 years and is kind of burned out and, you know what I mean, just going through the motions. Okay. So, I mean, I love what you guys are doing. I appreciate you guys coming on. I think this has been a fantastic conversation. There's a lot for people to take away. I wanted to give you guys the opportunity, if there's anything else that you want to share before we kind of sign off and say thank you. I think listeners, if you guys have resonated with any part of what Vlad and Brian have shared, share this episode, send it to people who might benefit, people that are dealing with different sleep troubles or liver, kidney, central nervous system issues, all thyroid, everything that we've discussed. Send this to them, let them go and kind of learn for themselves how they can take a more active, empowered position in their journey and not necessarily just outsource it to someone else where they feel like a passive co-pilot in their own fucking life. And then I'm going to turn it over to Vlad and Brian, who run Chi Supplements, QIsupplements.com. Guys, anything else that you want to share with our listeners right now while you got their ear?
I'll let Vlad close, but I just want to reiterate that like we're to a time that you can't, exactly just what you said, is there's so much out there that you can control your health, and like you don't have to one of the greatest things of advances is you can go out and read research, and you don't have to be passive anymore. And and gain the confidence that you can do that. And yeah, you're stepping outside of like, just see how the machine is built, and it's not built for you to be empowered. And just, I think it's the more and more with things going on, it's time you take that control over your health. Just that's part of what we do. It's we're working on a bigger movement of like, let's work on like truly healthcare. Like, how do you become really healthy? Not just, hey, I'm sick, I want to take this pill to get better. It's like, hey, how do I want to optimize my life and not have to spend, $20,000, $30,000 a year? You can do incredible for, $1,000, $500. Like, there's just so much you can do, and the ROI on your health is insane.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I got. Go ahead, Brian. Sorry.
Thank you, Brian.
Otherwise, I'll just keep going, and we'll be here past. You'll be like, it's bedtime.
You gotta put a stop.
I'm enjoying it. I'm sure people are enjoying it.
I mean, the only thing I'll say is, when it comes to your health, I'm a big proponent of two things. Always look at everything through a cause-effect lens, right? What is the cause and what's the effect? If you can't figure out what the cause is, at least figure out if it is a cause or an effect. Two things that I always talk to people is blood pressure. Actually, the biggest one is actually blood pressure is usually the biggest one. Blood pressure isn't a one thing, right? You can't just fix blood pressure. Blood pressure is an effect. Something isn't working right, so you have high blood pressure. And taking that idea and applying it to your body, to everything you have, and figuring out the issue that you're struggling with. Is it because of something, or is it causing something else? So, and I think that'll be really good long-term on figuring out, how to address your issue that you're dealing with. And, whether it's medicine or, supplementation, peptides, detox, whatever it is, I think that's going to be a big, my gosh.
Needle mover.
Yes, thank you. Big needle mover in getting results that you want. So
for sure. It's so fascinating the more you get into it. And like, I mean, I absolutely love what you guys are sharing and recommending. And even what you just talked about, Vlad, like if someone's got high blood pressure, that could be atherosclerosis, which could be heavy metal toxicity, causing damage to the arteries, causing plaque to be put in to repair the arteries that are being damaged by the heavy metals, and someone who's sedentary. And if you just try to treat blood pressure with a medication, you're ignoring fucking everything that's actually going on and causing it.
Exactly. You're not fixing anything. You're removing a symptom. And
that's how you get worse. That's how you get worse. Removing a symptom and then the cause, like you allow the cause to keep going and build up, and
it's like submission to the machine.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's the opposite of rage against the machine. It's submission to the machine.
Yeah. And people it's not the way to think. Like, think of like, okay, like what's the underlying cause? And, sometimes you do, you have, something there, but it's like, think backwards and work backwards. And it's like, well, if you want to be healthy for 50 years, like you want to get the underlying cause taken care of.
Yeah. For sure. The second thing, and I call myself the worst supplement salesman, because for me, I don't believe you should be taking any supplement forever, right? Supplements are meant to quote unquote supplement, right? You take it, wean off of it, wean back on it, right? If stop taking all the supplements and see what your body does. Does your body still function fine? If it does, you don't need those supplements anymore. If you did, it would have fixed it. And sometimes you do, right? But still, weaning off of stuff and getting back on them is really healthy for your body, because it doesn't get your body tied to, all of the additions that your body needs to be producing within itself. So I'm a big proponent of your body fixing itself. But it doesn't build subscriptions and it doesn't sell supplements every day. But I feel like it's the right way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, you figure you can take something twice a year versus something every day, and it's like, well, yeah, I mean, that's you look at like how to master your health, and it's like, well, when we were younger and we really feel good, we didn't take anything. So how do we go? And we all need whatever, but how do we go back that direction where it's like, wow, I'm just like, I'm stimulating my body where it's naturally producing the hormone levels it needs to.
If you go on Amazon and it says you've ordered this 10 times before, stop and go to Chi Supplements, QIsupplements.com, and type in the system of your body that's not working great. Book a call with Vlad. You know what I mean? Have a chat. I mean, get off the nonsense loop. And I think that's a great place for us to start. If you guys have enjoyed this episode, share it the fuck up, send it to people that can benefit. Let's start changing the way that we handle our health and empowering one another to take control of it. And Vlad and Brian, thank you so much for coming on. I've enjoyed the conversation as much as I thought I would, and I appreciate you guys.
Thanks, Anthony.
All right. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
All right. I will see you later.
Bye. Awesome. Bye. Thank you, guys. I appreciate that.